Ollie's family moves around, like, a lot. So, every time Ollie does something super embarrassing, she always gets a fresh start next year. Except this time, Ollie's family is staying here for middle school. Is there anywhere she can be herself? Does Ollie even know who she is if she stays in one place? Can Ollie make the most of this fresh start?
Okay, hi Gale, how are you?
Hi, doing well. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Nice to have you
Thank
here.
you for having me.
So you got a book out, and I see it right there over your left shoulder, called Fresh Start. And before we get to your book, I do want to get a little bit of your backstory. It sounds very interesting. You moved around a lot as a kid, and that was kind of the inspiration for this book, yeah?
I did, yeah. So because of my dad's job, much like the character, my family moved around a bit. I lived in places like Bangkok and Frankfurt, and I loved it because anytime something embarrassing happened, anytime I got into a huge fight with a friend, it didn't matter. I was going to hit the bricks, start over, and become a whole new person. So when we relocated to Northern Virginia, and I found out that we were going to stay there forever, just in time for middle school, it was a huge shift. Horrible, embarrassing, terrible. I learned so much.
What was different about it?
Yeah, so for the first time, since I was very small, I was back in America. I had gotten so used, for example, to centimeters and Celsius. That was one thing. But another was that instead of being in international schools, I was coming to a place where everybody had known each other since third grade. They had all of these in-jokes. They had access to like media and culture that I didn't quite understand yet. And honestly, they were really curious about my personal heritage in a way I hadn't experienced before. It made me much more aware of how I was perceived as different and made me do a lot of introspection.
So when you left the United States, you were how old?
5.
And when you came back, you were?
When I came back, I was 12.
It would have been a big shift because between 5 and 12, there's a lot of growing up, definitely, and a lot of change, yeah. Do you speak multiple languages as a result of that?
Bits and pieces. What did happen was I acquired an interest in how people communicate, which I think has served me pretty well to this day.
Did you like Thailand?
I love Thailand. That's where my mom's side of the family is from. So I got to spend a lot of time with my family, with amazing food. It was a wonderful experience.
Okay, because I actually lived there for 3 years, 2007 to 2010, so it's been a while.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What was your favorite thing about it?
Peace and tranquility, and the fact that it was just a complete departure from the American life that I'd been living for the past 40 years.
Absolutely, that is a shift.
I needed a complete sort of decompression from the life that I had. And Thailand was about as far away from that as I could get. And 3 years later, I came back and I felt much better. I felt like I could
It gives you a new perspective, yeah.
Start again, yeah, definitely. So at what point did you start getting interested in writing?
I have always been a huge fan of stories. The thing that didn't change when I moved around was that books were there for me, comics were there for me. I could dive into new places, new people. I remember being really excited about stuff like Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes, The Far Side, and Animorphs, and trying to make up my own stories inspired by these things. I remember I had a huge hit classic, Revenge of the Mutant Hamburger Patties, came out when I was 7 years old, a smash hit. But I've always been really interested in sharing parts of myself with people through stories. I personally find it really fun to draw those stories.
Okay, so you're primarily a graphic artist then?
That's right, yeah. I am a cartoonist by trade. I think it is a really cool thing that we get to do where we have all of the tools of prose, we have the words that we are sharing with you, but we also have the visual medium to work with. When you make a comic page, you are guiding a reader's eye through that page. You're showing them how people feel. You're using colors to add to that mood. Like if you watch a movie and it's really blue, you're going to feel a little bit sad, right? We get to do that too. There are so many things you can do to share your story through comics.
So you basically draw the story rather than write the story.
It's a bit of column A and a bit of column B. Some people go straight to drawing. I personally write a script for myself first, kind of like I'm making a movie. You can see it in your head, break it down into pages that way. But there are a lot of different ways to make a comic. I tend to think of it both ways.
Okay, is this anything like manga?
Absolutely. Manga is the Japanese word for comics.
Okay.
So Japan has a very broad comics tradition, as does America. And when I was a tween, manga and anime, Japanese cartoons, were just starting to become a big deal in the States. So I came here, I discovered Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Sailor Moon, and I fell in love. There were these magical stories about kids going on huge adventures, saving each other through the power of friendship. And it really inspired the kind of stories that I want to tell too. The thing is that there is such a breadth of the types of story available that every kid, I feel like, can find something for them today.
Okay, now I'm looking at your bio, and there's reference to Babysitters Club, and it says by Anne Martin. So, but then your name's on there as well. So tell me that story.
That's right. So I knew that I wanted to make comics for a living. And the first job I got was adapting graphic novel versions of these Babysitters Club books that were coming out when I was a kid. You might remember them. It was a long-running series about a group of kids who decided to become babysitters together. And so it was a huge inspiration for me growing up, and finding out that they wanted to adapt them into the graphic novel format for a new generation of readers was a really exciting job for me. I got to work with Anne M. Martin to create stories that resonate today while also drawing from those original characters and ideas.
So those books were just traditional novels, just written novels?
That's right, prose books, just like Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, long-running serial.
Oh, I see. And then you animated them, essentially.
In a sense, you know how there are a lot of movie adaptations of books today, like you've got your Hunger Games, you've got Harry Potter. Well, graphic novel adaptations are a lot like that, where you are taking something from one format and saying, how could this work as a graphic novel, as a play, as a musical album? There are a lot of things you get to consider, like what would be the most fun thing to see.
Do you think it's more challenging for somebody to be a graphic novel artist than a traditional written word author? Or are they both kind of equally as challenging?
That is such a fun question that I feel like has sparked many fights on the internet. I personally think that there are a lot of challenges and joys for both. Like if you asked me to write a novel tomorrow, I would not know how to do only words. Like, how do you paint a picture with an adjective? I do my best, but it's a different skill set from what I am used to. Where what I'm trying to do is build a story where the words and pictures work together. If you have a drawing where somebody is like frowning in a horrible way and says like, I'm having a great time, like that says so much with words and pictures. They work together.
Well, I think that's interesting that you say that, because when text messaging first started out, I can remember having a great deal of difficulty expressing sarcasm because people would take everything that you typed literally. And even to this day, there isn't a sarcasm emoji or something that conveys sarcasm. So what I see people do is put in parentheses, sarcasm.
Yes, I remember. I know that in forums for a while, like the \S was like our go-to solution, but it never quite feels the same.
No.
And it's really interesting how we end up coming with different ways to communicate in different formats.
But I guess my point was that I think, at least from my perspective, that you could portray sarcasm in a drawing better than you could with written word only. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that there are definitely ways to do both. I just know that one would be easier for me.
Okay, because you could kind of do like the wink, or you could do the sort of the roll the eyes or something to indicate
Exactly.
that,
Or even
yeah.
like, yeah, if you took, for example, a word balloon, you could make the words really big or small, or change the shape of the balloon to be like spiky. And then you get a sense that the thing they're saying is a little bit off.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Okay, well, let's get to Fresh Start before we run out of time. So, this book was inspired by your moving around so much as a kid? Yeah? All
That's right.
right, well, tell us a little bit of the overview of the book, the message, if you
Yeah, so
will.
Fresh Start. A Fresh Start is about a girl named Ollie who moves around a lot because of her dad's job, a lot like me. And I remember every time I moved, I was so ready for it. If something embarrassing happened in my life, if I got into a fight with friends, I was ready to hit the bricks, start over, and have a whole new like me to present to people. So when my family got to Northern Virginia and I found out we would be staying there forever just in time for middle school, it was horrible, terrible, very embarrassing. I learned so much, and I wanted to put all of that into the book.
So, what happens to the character in the book? Give us a little
Yeah,
taste of
so
a teaser.
so she finds out that she is staying there, and immediately some horrible things start happening. Puberty, periods, big interactions with people who would like to be her friends. And the really big thing for Ollie is learning that in order to stay in a place, you want to take the time to understand people, and the image that they present to you might not be the person they truly are. Ollie finds out that, for example, Ollie is a multiracial Thai American person like me. She makes a friend who looks completely white and finds out that that person is Thai too. There's no one way to be a Thai person, a person of expressing any different kind of gender. And I wanted to say, hey, like, there are always ways to meet people, to make a friend, and keep them in a time that's really tumultuous.
There was something on here about a organization, Comics Advocacy Group. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. So I am a founding member of a nonprofit called the Comics Advocacy Group. I love making comics. It is my absolute passion. It is the way that I love to share myself with people. And I want to give upcoming cartoonists the opportunities that were so helpful to me. Comics is really interesting because there's no one way to get into it. You could just grab a paper and pencil, share your work online, and find a career from there. You could make webtoons. There are so many different inroads, but having resources is always going to be this battle, where if you go to art school, you might have different kinds of opportunities, but it's so expensive. With the Comics Advocacy Group, we want to share information and resources that will help level that playing field. We're working on getting out grants so cartoonists can work on the work they really want to make. We're looking forward to sharing more educational resources that are readily available in one place, and I'm really excited to keep growing with them.
Is this a place where aspiring artists can submit their work?
Not yet, but I'm hoping to have information about how the submission process works to make that more accessible to aspiring cartoonists.
So where would they go now?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different ways to share your work now. One way, if you're looking to get into book publishing, is to put together pitches. It is kind of like working in a literary format where there are agents who represent you. And if you know what kind of stories you want to make, you can tell them about the stories you want to make. They will represent you and share your work with lots of different editors who might want to help you publish that story. But that's only one road. You can also make your own comics, post them online, and share them with people without any of those gatekeepers. It all depends on why you want to make comics and who you want to give them to.
What do you think about making one and putting it on YouTube? Does that work?
Ooh. I think that that would be a really interesting avenue. I don't know a lot about what cartoonists are doing on YouTube. It's not quite my area of expertise, but I can see it being a really interesting and valuable resource. Like, for example, I know that cartoonists have really taken to TikTok, being able to share parts of their process or pages that they're working on and help people find their comics that way. I can only imagine YouTube is similar.
Yeah, I think so. And I've seen some. And in fact, we have a snippet of yours that we're going to use at the beginning of this interview. And it'll be on YouTube. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what kind of reaction we get. And I think with that, we're going to have to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on the show. The last question is, do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes, you could look me up, Gale Galligan, and find my website, which is Galesur, GALESAUR.com. I'm also on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Okay. Well, Gale, it was nice meeting you and nice chatting with you. Best of luck with your work. I hope your books do well. And maybe we'll see you back on the show again.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.